Good morning, South Africa. We've officially kicked off Heritage Month, and in celebrating all things South Africa, today I'm going to be talking about a business that started from very humble beginnings in a small shop in Rosettenville. It's now a household name, not just locally, but internationally.
Do you mean Nandos?
Oh, wow, spicy as always, I see. Allow me to introduce my guest, Doug Place, who is the Chief Marketing Officer at Nandos.
Thank you
Doug,
very
good
much, ma'am. Really good
morning.
to be here. What a lovely setting. Good grief, I don't get to hang out in places like this too often. So thanks for having me.
It's an absolute pleasure. So talk to us. This business started as a little shop by entrepreneurs with big dreams.
Yeah, that's right. Well, so it's a Heritage Month, and it's fortuitous because it's also Nando's birthday. So we turned 33 years old in September.
Wow.
So from 1987, which was a terrible time really to start a business, if you think about it. You know, it was started by two guys, Robbie Brosen and Fernando Duarte, who, you know, they worked in an electronics repair business, and they had a boss, and they had, you know, all the things that, accompany, a formal, disciplined kind of work environment. And when Fernando, who's of Portuguese origin, took Robbie out to lunch to a little eatery called Chicken Land in Rosettenville, they discussed over this very famous lunch, what it would be like to start a business that they would really be passionate about, something that they would really enjoy, and that working should be something you want to do, not have to do.
Absolutely.
And so they decided to buy that restaurant, this little Chicken Land restaurant in Rosettenville. That became later the first Nando's in 1987. So, and they did it with two very foundational principles, which are still very much alive today. And those two principles were to have fun and to make money. Now, you got to balance those two things out. Typically, making money is, important to most businesses, so that's less controversial. But if you're not having fun whilst doing it, then it's very hard to have a brilliant work experience.
What would you say is the secret formula to Nando's success? I mean, the success that the brand has enjoyed.
Sure.
Would it be that marketing is at its core?
Sure, that definitely helps. There's no one thing, but I will say this: Nando's is first and foremost a people business.
Right.
And most businesses are people business because it takes a team of people to bring something to life. And invariably, when there's a transaction, if you're selling a good or a product or a service, whether that's a haircut or a Mercedes-Benz, it's a transaction between people. And at the heart of the Nando's business is this very deep affection for people. If you look after the people that grill the world's best flame-grilled peri-peri chicken, then they're going to cook that really well. And if they cook that really well, you have a really great customer experience. And if you have a really great customer experience, then the bank manager's happy.
Right.
And typically, a lot of businesses will do it the other way around. They say, well, how can we maximize profit? And then they fit the customer and your, employee agenda into that as a
journey.
Exactly, as a context. Whereas we've flipped it on its head totally.
Well, talking about flipping things on its head, you guys are always rather cheeky about what you say. I love how something happens today and has everybody talking about it, and the next best thing you see a big billboard that pulls the mickey out of it. And I know we love to laugh at ourselves, but how do you keep on the pulse in your messaging?
It's it's interesting. If you jump into a taxi or an Uber and you tell people who work for Nando's, they'll tell you one of two things quite quickly. One of which is they really like the chicken, which is good, and then they really like the advertising on the communication. Right. So these, again, are foundational to who we are as a business and a brand, not just here in South Africa, but increasingly other countries around the world. And where that originally started was we didn't have money to buy huge blocks of advertising sets. We actually couldn't afford that big billboard in the late 80s, early 90s.
Right.
And so the partnership then with Hunt Lascaris, which has then gone on to be TVWA, was to say, look, we need to be able to capture people's attention. And it was a really brilliant thing on behalf of Robbie and Fernando at the time to say that people are media. And if you have something which is really interesting and really fun and useful to say, then that message will be transmitted from person to person. So it was viral marketing 20, 30 years before the term viral marketing
became a thing.
Became a thing, exactly right.
How would a small business grow fundamentally, do they need to save their money and approach an ad agency and find some kind of workable mechanism in order to grow their business?
We're really lucky at Nandos because we get to work with a lot of entrepreneurs on a daily basis. We're very, very mindful of our roots and where we come from. And one of the things that we've noticed really well is at the heart of any business is you have to identify and meet this customer need really well. A lot of entrepreneurs get it wrong in that they've designed a product or a service and then they try to convince people of its value. The value is met when it meets a need of someone. There's a community of people out there who need what you are presenting to them, and then you build your brand or its positioning around it, which is a fancy business school term, right? So for entrepreneurs listening, is like, what is the one thing you have that no one else has?
Right.
And that's you. Like you are a brand. You have a unique set of preferences and skills and disciplines and a context which no one else has. There isn't another brand that comes from Rosettenville, South Africa that serves the best flame grilled peri-peri chicken. Like there's lots of chicken out there. Some of it's cheaper than what we sell it for, but no one does it better than we do.
So there is the secret.
Yeah.
You've got to do what you do better than the next person.
Yeah, exactly right.
In South Africa, we have so many amazing brands, so many homegrown brands that we can be proud of, especially during Heritage Month.
Yeah, definitely.
And yours is definitely a brand that I think is worthy of celebrating specifically this month, not just because it's your birthday month, but because it is a homegrown brand that takes South Africa to a global stage. How has the uptake been internationally?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's hard. We're really proud to be a fairly prominent South African brand in a lot of territories. So, we have more restaurants in the UK than we have here in South Africa. We have a couple hundred restaurants in Australia as well. And then we have, smaller communities like, Saudi Arabia, where we have fewer than 10 restaurants. And there's, there's quite an extensive runway plan for places like that, as well as India and the US and other territories around the world. But at the heart of it, again, being South African in those places is really unique. It's really different. There aren't other, there's not a lot of consumer brands which are South African. They'll think, there's mining brands to a degree. MultiChoice has done very well in terms of having a footprint, certainly in the Middle East and throughout Africa. But actually, a household consumer brand being South African and being from a place where people have associations of Mandela and associations of creativity and art and music and all of these things which are key pillars within the Nandos brand. And so Nandos is this diversity. It's not, it's one very specific thing, which is a chicken restaurant. But it is a chicken restaurant whose roots come from, one Portuguese founder, one Jewish founder in South Africa in 1987.
Right.
And that is, demonstrates to the world at a time when the world is rightfully quite anxious and quite fearful. And if we do this in a way through advertising communication, which makes people laugh and smile, then you reframe difficult topics in ways which look a lot more manageable.
Right.
And no one's doing that. So it gives us a real advantage over other restaurant brands that this is our space, this is what we believe in, and we want to invite people onto that journey with us. Rather than trying to always sell things to people and convince people of its value. The value is intrinsic to who we are as a business.
That's fantastic. I could talk to you for ages.
Oh, thank you.
Gosh, I think that there's so much that any entrepreneur can learn from your journey. Is there a repository of information that an entrepreneur can refer to? Is the story captured somewhere? Is it on your website?
Yeah, there are a few resources available. When we turned 30, we produced a documentary called Pluck, which then toured a couple of film festivals around the world, which told the story of the Nandos, business growing up alongside the, fledgling South African democracy. So that's probably the most interesting thing for people to see. Look for the Pluck documentary. But to be honest, we're still new. We're still babies. Like we're still trying to figure things out with a lot of the rest of South Africa. As soon as you kind of write a book, it feels like the end of something, the end of a chapter. Man, we're still writing new chapters in the Nando story all of the time. So the best thing really is just to check out our website, nandos.co.za, and you can see how that story is being written, day to day and through interviews like this. And thank you for putting together a program like this. It's so good to be in an optimistic space in a context of, great chaos. But, all good businesses were born in chaos, all of them. From the Walt Disney Company
I
through
agree.
to Microsoft, through to, Nandos, to Anglo-American, all of them started at times of great chaos. So now's a good time for South Africans to start a business.
You've heard it, guys. Now is as good a time as any to start your business, to plant that seed, to nurture it, and add a bit of piri-piri so that it can blow up into something phenomenal in the future. Until next week.